We're John Greens.
And this is Crash Course AP History.
And today we're talking about the 1950s. Mr. Greens! Weren't the 1950s a time of progression?
In a time when people had cool cars and rock and roll played on the radio?
And Grease!
Well, as from the past, the 1950s were actually a confusing time where many Americans, who were mostly white, enjoyed new luxuries as well as a thriving middle-class lifestyle. Yet segregation, communism, and post-war Europe continued to prevent others from reaching this affluent suburb lifestyle.
After World War II, several events changed how society functioned and how people lived. Communism from the USSR and capitalism from America developed a somewhat silent turf war over weakened post-war countries. The Marshall Plan, enacted in 1948 by Congress, hoped to entice said countries to adopt a Western democracy and economy.
Oh, it's time for the mystery document?
The rules here are simple. I try to guess the document. If I'm wrong, I get wet. In this anxious autumn for America, one fact looms above all others in our people's mind. One tragedy challenges all men dedicated to the work of peace. One work shouts now to all those who foolishly pretend that ours is not a nation at war. This fact is tragedy. This word is Korea. A small country, Korea has been more than 2 years battleground for the costliest foreign war of our nation has fought. Expecting the 2 world wars, it shall be a burial ground for 2,000 Americans dead. So, it's Korea, so like, President Lyndon B. Johnson?
Meanwhile, others saw the promise of socialism, and after conflicts like the Korean War, the Cold War was born. Besides the buildup of arms and nuclear deterrence, the Cold War was also seen through the space race.
On a more domestic note, social change also begun for another population. Civil rights entered the mainstream of American life. For example, in 1954, in the landmark Brown v. Board of Education case, the Supreme Court declared that the separate educational facilities for black children were inherently unequal.
In response, many Southern whites resisted the Brown ruling by withdrawing white children from schools and blatantly ignoring the law.
Despite these efforts, the movement towards civil rights spread throughout the country. In December 1955, a Montgomery activist named Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person. Her arrest sparked a 13-month boycott of the city's buses by its black citizens, which only ended when the bus companies stopped discriminating against African-American passengers. Acts of nonviolent resistance like the boycott helped kickstart the civil rights movement.
As international politics and social progress unfolded, more positive features for America began as well. President Eisenhower enacted the National Interstate Highway Act, making it possible for Americans to live away from the cities, so suburbs popped up all over.
Ease of travel and expansion of business led to a great upswing for economy, further allowing for suburbanites to enjoy amenities like washing machines, the radio, and the increasingly common television set. One of Elvis's most famous songs, Jailhouse Rock, led the way for the rock and roll genre of music.
Rock and roll sent shockwaves across America. Because rock and roll originated among the lower classes and segregated ethnic group, many middle-class whites thought it was tasteless.
But the commercial possibilities were limitless. As a generation of young adults finished military service, bought houses in suburbia, and longed for stability and conformity, their children seemed to take comfort for granted. They wanted to release the tensions that bubbled beneath the smooth surface of post-war America.
The 1950s were a time of great change and progression. It saw as the beginning and early development of the Cold War.
The civil rights movement finally started to gain the momentum it needed to form a unified force across the country that would end segregation once and for all.
Old luxuries started to become the norm for the common man, and new forms of entertainment brought peace and comfort to a war-weary country.
Rock and roll inspired a young generation to rebel against their parents and think differently. The 50s brought a new wave of thinking and progression that led to the future we have today. Thanks, and I'll see you then.